right. I think we're good to get started.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, Everyone can hear me, I'm assuming, and we're seeing the slides. Welcome, everybody. Monday, AI Collab Land Research. Super excited to talk about what we're doing with AI. Last time we met, I was not able to give a full presentation with regards to what we're doing because I had to hop into a protocol delegation meeting with Optimism. So just to recap what happened last time, I gave a very short 30-minute presentation. I am going to this time give a similar presentation, but we'll have the complete hour. And I'm going to be actively watching chat if people have any questions. And I want to make a complete, full kind of picture in terms of what we're doing here at Collab Land. But last week, cut it short for a very good reason. We are now working with Optimism. And in this current season, when it comes to helping out with protocol delegation, and we have some really big plans when it comes to what this means, not only just on Optimism, but for all of the chains that we support NL2s on Collab Land. So with that, I'll hop right into it. Again, these slides are the same slides, but I'm going to go into much more detail. So last time we talked about how to think about AI. Going to go through that in a little bit more detail again. And then I want to be able to make sure that I can talk at the right level when it comes to these different EIPs. So 4337 is an EIP that talks about a way for someone that doesn't have a native token to be able to have their gas paid for them. There's this chicken or the egg thing when it comes to blockchain, in that in order to start transacting, you have to have the native token. But at the very beginning, how do you get that native token? And 4337 addresses that cold start problem and a lot more. And I will see if I can talk about this, draw upon my previous experience when it comes to gaming, specifically social gaming. I will also then talk about EIP 6900, which will, again, I'm hoping I can talk about this at the right level and not get too technical. So I'll try to keep it high level. So if you have questions, if I'm talking about it at too high of a level, and anyone wants me to go in a little bit more in depth, I'm happy to. Because I think this is going to change the nature of development when developers specifically, talk about dApp. So this is going to be really interesting. Side note, Uniswap v4 just was released. People are following that. And that's something that just released, I think, last week. So I can talk about that in terms of what's different with regards to last week's chat and this week's, not last week, 2 weeks ago's chat and this week's chat, when it comes to Uniswap v4 and what they call hooks and how that applies to 1600. And then we'll talk a little bit about and give us some alpha with regards to our member portal that's coming up. And we'll wrap all of that up in what this means and how this all ties together when it comes to AI. And super excited to talk about intent and the future of what we believe at Collab Land will help with user adoption. And then always want to give a bit of room for QA. So with that, let's start going. So at a high level, we want to talk about how to think of AI. And everyone is focused on AI right now. But AI is a feature and not a product. And the best way to think about this, how we think about it, is when you go back to the invention of the iPhone and multi-touch. where you don't have a physical hardware-based keyboard. That was actually kind of the innovation there was not just the glass, not just the multi-touch, and the being able for the technology to understand what you're pressing on a glass, because they had all of that. The actual thing that unlocked technology that unlocked the iPhone was AI, or back now it's not called AI. Just a side note, I might have mentioned this before, but anytime there's a technology where computers are involved and they don't have an accurate term for it, they call it AI. So AI in general is the thing that is always about to happen. But once we come up with terms or names, whether it's machine learning, or in this case, when it comes to the iPhone, just autocomplete, then they have these specific terms, no longer called AI, and AI is meant to be some future thing. So with the iPhone, I would argue that autocomplete is really what allowed the iPhone to become a product. And if you look back at some older interviews when Steve Jobs and the iPhone team were talking about the launch of the iPhone, there are a lot of different components that need together, but the big thing about the iPhone was the keyboard. And they couldn't figure out how to set the different sizes of fingers for the keyboard. And they didn't understand, like, how do we make sure that when users are pressing a letter, that we know what letter they want to press. And so there was this big delay in actually the iPhone launch because they couldn't solve this. And an engineer actually went back and in a matter of a few weeks, less than a month, just put in autocomplete algorithm so that when someone was typing, there is this invisible hit pad for each key on the keyboard. And what the software would do, and this is an invisible keypad, so you would see this like over every key, there would be an overlay of this invisible hit area. And what the algorithm, the autocomplete algorithm would do was it would resize these invisible hit pads, touch areas, so that the ones that would actually form the next letter for a word that is common, the hit pad would actually be bigger and the surrounding hit pad would be smaller. And that really was the unlock when it comes to how the iPhone was able to be released with this touch, non-hardware based keyboard. And I would argue that the same is true here when it comes to what we're doing with AI. And I know that a lot of people are focused on ChatGPT, where AI can actually complete your thoughts or could expand on bullet points or whatever. It could answer questions as well. Whenever you put in a question in a text prompt, there's image AI, where you just have a description. And it's amazing how these different image-based AI tools have gotten better. So I know just a few months ago, being able to render fingers for AI was difficult, but that seems to be a solved issue now. I mean, you just take a look at the incredible advances from like Midjourney, and you compare the image prompts and the output from just 2 months ago. It's wildly different, and it's beginning to be hard to detect different. Now there's feedback that AI has a specific look, and so they've taken that back and been able to actually revise the output, so there isn't just a canonical look that the images provide. And then Meta with all of its voice innovations, where you can put in prompts and have your voice rendered accurately, and music as well. So Meta's doing a lot of great things when it comes to audio. Uh, and so when you look at those products, it's easy to think that AI is a thing that will be able to um, do work for you. But the way that we think of AI at Collab Land is more about it helping and manage things that you want to get done. And we'll talk about intent in a little bit. But the way that we think about AI at Collabland is it's a helper. And instead of taking the approach where we are hoping AI will do something completely new and novel when it comes to blockchain or Web3, what we are looking to do is how can we use AI right now in a very practical way to solve some immediate problems. And the biggest problems that we're facing at Collabland is mainstream adoption. So we have, just to give some vanity stats, we have over 50,000 tokenized communities. And with that, it's about 9 million wallet. It's over 2 million unique users. However, we have or almost 100 million unique Discord usernames that are in these Collab managed Discord servers, and they don't have a wallet. So, you compare the close to 10 million wallets that are connected versus the 100 million users that are in a Collab managed Discord server, our complete addressable market just on Discord. And you can see that there's less than 10% of those that are actively into Web3 or crypto. And what we want to do is power community. And how do we help those communities onboard those users that are interested and have the initiation to be able to join a Discord server, but may not have the confidence or the technical know-how, or may be afraid to download an extension like MetaMask or install a wallet, or maybe they don't have a lot of time to do that, but they're interested and they're curious because they've joined these communities. How do we help them? And that's really what we think that the power of AI can help augment. And so with that, we also believe that privacy is utmost important. And when you dig into AI and LLMs, you can see that there is a lot of controversy when it comes to privacy. I think there was an article in the New York Times a few months ago. I think it was maybe February, where a major platform provider was saying that they're going to charge for API access because all the information that was used to train these LLMs was from their platform. And the only way to guard against that scraping of all of that data is to charge for API access. So, there is a lot of data leakage concerns. So we not only think about AI as a feature, but we also look at it from the dimension of user privacy. And how do we encourage what we're calling local LLM so that the transactions, your history, all the off-chain data can be either shielded, protected, and remain in users' control. Because at Collabland, one of our core values is user sovereignty and selective disclosure. So it's really up to the user if they want to disclose their information, but it should be private by default. Okay, so that's kind of how we position ourselves and think about AI. And with that, I want to set the context of EIP 4337. So in the next slide, we talk about 4337. And with 4337, there are two main categories. One is a paymaster and the other is a bundler. And again, I'm going to keep this high level. And let me answer a question first. I'm looking at the stage here. So there's a question, but you can still scrape without an API. Yes, you can. However, a lot of information that you scrape, can break terms of service. And so that is what the platform is actually using a large LLM provider, is that they're breaching terms of service with the API. API usually makes it easier to consume the data in a programmatic way. And you don't have to worry about formatting or if the site were to change in terms of layout or UI. I think scraping is and APIs are very similar in terms of the use case of an LLM wanting to extract the data from the platform. One is just a way more simple or easier way of being able to do that. But that's a great question. And this is where it poses this question with regards to user ownership and openness versus the kind of rights, data rights that either platforms or users have. So with an API, there's a way to be able to control that. Whereas when you scrape, because of the nature of the open web, it's hard to enforce certain privacy restrictions. Something is rendered in a browser. Used to be similar case, just small aside, when it came to front-end development. But now, with modern frameworks like React and things, or front ends not rendered in plain HTML or vanilla JavaScript, it's a little bit more obfuscated there. But yeah, you can still scrape with it without an API. It's just a little bit more brittle. But back to the EIP, great question. 4337, we're talking about paymasters and bundlers. And I'll talk first about the bundler. The bundler is a way of being able to batch transactions. And this is really useful because instead of the user having to sign a message for every transaction that they want to happen, they can actually bundle these transactions. And this becomes important when it comes to intent. So, and I'll talk about that more in the intent section, but the bundler essentially takes a bunch of transactions. It could be Alice's transaction, or it could be a bunch of different transactions, whether it's from Alice or Bob or Charlie. The bundler can take all of these and then submit them as one larger batch transaction, and that saves some gas. And so the user is able to save gas there. And the idea is that the bundler could also, working with a block builder or being a block builder themselves, meaning that they're submitting the transaction to the blockchain, they could actually get some benefit from it as well, economic. And so the savings by bundling transactions could be shared with the end user and the bundler. And so that allows for more transactions theoretically to be packed into a block. There are some block space considerations, and there's also what is known as MEV, minor extracted value, where without getting too technical, a bundler now has an opportunity to work with those that are looking to profit off of certain types of transaction. And there is this opportunity to coordinate. So that is really exciting, and it leads to more efficiency. And so this also has user benefit from a user experience perspective, value. So there is this opportunity for different types of UI expression when it comes to bundling transactions, especially if a paymaster is involved. So you can imagine having a transaction bundle. So you can say, hey, I want to do these 3 or 4 things, and these 3 or 4 separate things may be something that a user wants to do. Kind of, I want to, swap USD for Ethereum, and I want to use that Ethereum to swap for another token, and then I want to use that token as a transaction to purchase. So these are 4 separate types of transactions that need to happen, but that could be bundled together. And again, this will lead into intent, which I'll talk about, where instead of having to say, I want to do 4 separate things, you could just tell potentially an AI, I want to buy this NFT with this ERC20 token. And then the AI could do all those transactions and bundle them for you. And I'll get to that in a minute, but talk about the paymaster specifically. The paymaster would be used so that the end user doesn't have to even pay for gas. So what this would do is optimize the user experience. So you can imagine that scenario where you're bundling transactions and you sign a message, but you don't have to not only sign 4 different transactions, but you can have someone else sponsor the gas for you, because it may be that it is that dApp that wants to encourage users to use their platform. And so they may pay for the gas for all of that to happen. And that is what a paymaster is. It is someone else besides the user performing the transaction being able to pay for gas. And so in this way, you can kind of think about that example, that dApp being the advertiser or fronting the gas payment, because it's trying to show you as a user the benefit of using their dApp. So in a way, having paymaster not only alleviates the chicken or the egg problem where someone that doesn't have a native token to pay for gas needing that token in order to get going, you can have a sponsored transaction, but it also leads into an opportunity for Web3 based advertising. So you can imagine a scenario where someone wants to advertise to a Web3 community. And what better way to align incentives than paying for gas directly so that the user benefits? Now, this changes that whole advertising model, right? Where typically you would have a platform, let's say Google AdWords is a good example, or Facebook ads, where the platform makes the money and provides a free service to the end user. Here in this example with Web3 advertising, the user directly benefits, and the advertiser would want a direct connection with that end user. So then in exchange for paying for the gas, that transaction actually now sponsored by the advertiser, and the advertiser has legitimate access to all of that data because they're paying for it. So it's I believe, I don't know the exact implementation, but it sets the stage for better incentive aligned advertising. So super excited by that. One small note here is that not only can the paymaster accept, let's say, ETH or can pay an ETH for the transaction, but there's what's called a token paymaster, meaning that a sponsor can pay not in the native token for gas, but could pay in an ERC20 token. And so these are the experiments that we're looking at Collab Land. Can we provide utility for those that have the Collab token to be able to use it to pay for gas once we release our implementation of EIP 4337, working with our other partners. So we have right now the GM pass, and the GM pass is setting the stage for EIP 4337 for us so that users can tip each other back and forth without having to leave Discord. Not only that, they could potentially, and this is what we're still investigating, have the ability to pay for those transactions in Collab tokens. And then that opens the door for sponsors that want to reach out to those that are in like the Collab Land managed Discord server, and then eventually into any Collab Land managed Discord server to pay for gas in the native token of that community, which opens the door for those communities to want to then have or mint their own ERC20 token to provide that utility. So Vinod is asking, we pay a gas fee with Collab token through the token paymaster using EIP 4337. Yes. So these are the POCs that we'll be launching first within the Collab Land Discord. So be on the lookout for that. So I guess there's a little bit of alpha there. So in the context, though, in this conversation, we talk about AI and 4337. I alluded to the fact that with this bundler service, you're going to be able to bundle a bunch of transactions into one. And maybe it's not you, the end user, that's going to have to decide which transactions to bundle. This is where AI comes, where you can actually have the AI say, reach out based off of all the other transactions that have happened in the past, learn and get better at how to best bundle and optimize so that the end user doesn't have to think about it. And we believe here at Collab Land, that will be a major utility of the token in the future because we are able to be, but we want to make sure that we lay the foundation correctly, that users own their own data. Local LLMs are going to need to be the foundation for that. And that it's only the users that want to share that information or that information is aggregate without it being user identifying that we can optimize what, again, I'll talk about this later when it comes to intents, what the user really wants to do, right? Like when you shop for Amazon and you want an item, you're not having specified the factory in which that item has come from, and then the local Amazon delivery service where that item should be shipped to, or the van that needs to pick up that item and the route that van needs to take in order to get to your destination. So all of that is abstracted as an intent, right? You just say, I want my toothbrush delivered tomorrow morning. And it gets delivered. So that's where we're going, I think, with our implementation of AI as a feature. Not the product, but it's just supposed to help practically help users. And there are a lot of things that we are thinking about when it comes to how do we make it easy for users to onboard. And so the EIP 4337 with the bundler and the token paymaster is part of that groundwork. All right, so moving on, this is quite interesting when we talk about EIP 6900. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about account plugin. So one of the things with the bundler and the paymaster, and the reason why a token paymaster can be used where someone else pays for gas is that right now the infrastructure for most of Web3 and blockchains use what they call an EOA, an externally owned account. That is your wallet address or public that's backed by a private. And the private key is a bit tricky because if you don't remember your private key, you will lose all access to your funds. But if you write it down and someone else finds what your private key is, they can steal all your funds. There's no way, once you have a private key associated with a public key or a wallet address, to be able to change it. They're very much coupled, and that's the core of cryptography. And right now there's no way known to be able to keep the same public key and change the private key. So there's no way of like changing quote unquote wallet password if the wallet password is the private key. In that way, the private key is not like a password at all. And so one of the things that I did not highlight in the previous slide, but is I'll quickly mention, is that it's a move also to smart accounts where your funds are not stored in this private public key. It's stored in a smart contract that's on the blockchain. And once the funds are stored in smart contract on a blockchain, you as a user have a proper banking account or account. And this account can have different owners. And this is where we are looking to position the GM Pass as initial owner of an account. And you can, as a user, since you own that account, can change it, just like a bank account where you can add and remove different names. So it's not that the funds travel with the person, the funds travel within it. And if you Google around or in Twitter, you may hear the word or the phrase account abstraction. That's what it really means, is that instead of holding funds in a key that is controlled by a private key that is kind of an all or nothing. If you're familiar with computers, it's like root access to an account. Those funds are held in a smart contract or an account. And so with EIP 6900, and when you talk about account plugins, you can think about an account like a smart contract. It is a smart contract. The best analogy, though, is like you can think of it as a like an app. An app. Let's just take the web browser as an third party developers can extend Chrome. So MetaMask is a widely used wallet that is a Chrome extension. And there's also a mobile version, a mobile wallet native app for MetaMask. So MetaMask as a dApp developer or a wallet now can extend Chrome, and it can have its own native mobile app. In the same way, as we move through key-based wallets and move toward account-based asset holdings with 4337, this new EIP 6900 describes a method of being able to have plugins to your account. Now, this is super interesting when you think about it, because when you look at any type of blockchain, the user has to push funds from A to B. So Alice needs to send a transaction to Bob. Bob cannot pull funds from Alice's. There's no like subscription-based payment flow. So all the payment flows right now on Ethereum that are key-based are all push-based. With account plugin, we have this new design space when it comes to pull-based accounts. We have kind of this quasi pull-based system when you approve, but I think a lot of mainstream users look at this approval process when it comes to ERC20 tokens, because you can't do this kind of approval with native tokens like with Ethereum. You can do it with, because they are contracts at the end of the day, you can do that with ERC20 fungible tokens, and you can do it with 721s or NFTs, non-fungible tokens. But here, when it comes to account plugins and being able for a smart contract to have this kind of fit inside of your account, there's a lot more design space here when it comes to pull-based and pull-based transactions. And these account plugins define an interface. And it's pretty exciting because it looks like it's gaining traction, and you can actually use both now. So you could use an account plugin to be able to pull funds from your account, and you can use like a website adapt signal that you want to push things to an account. If we're using batch transactions and the user not having to pay for gas, there could be this interesting kind of push and then pull, so that you can actually push transactions or signal them, have a sponsor pay for them, and then if something were to complete correctly or as expected, then later on, without the user having to intervene, so it provides better UX, a plugin from the same dApp could pull from funds from your account. So we are investigating and looking at this type of design that we think, and we're still going through the design phases of this, and I'm vetting this out with others that are in the NFT space, could potentially help reinforce royalty. And so this is why we, are super excited about this. So there's a lot to explore, a lot to go through here when it comes. But you can imagine, again, an AI in this push and pull based scenario being able to automate a lot of things on the user's behalf. Again, we have to be really careful when it comes to AI, and we want to step into this very cautiously. But you can see how AI can set the groundwork for automation. And so we're super excited about it. All right. Moving on to the next slide. I know that there's a hand raised, request to speak. I have 20 minutes left, but Cash Gale, if you don't mind typing your question into the stage, I'm more than happy to answer. And then at the end, if we do have time for Q&A, happy to have you speak if you want to hold off for a minute. All right. So moving on, mini app real quick. So again, AI is not the product feature, and the way we think that this could work well with mini apps is that right now we have a command center where admins can have mini apps. We are going to release a member portal. We're still scoping that out, and it's still being designed here. But with the member portal, we'll have mini apps as well when it comes to user-based mini apps. So we think this is where, with 4337, with 6900, we will able to have third-party developers, like I said, in this push and pull system, which I think is going to be kind of a coming around full circle when it comes to transactions. And my belief is that the type of blockchain interactions that we've had so far have been one side of the coin. Now, with the groundwork of 4337 helping to solve this initial bootstrap chicken or the egg problem by sponsoring transactions, and then having users having a proper account where they don't have to worry about the brittleness of public and private key management because they can easily just rotate keys, and then having a plugin system where third-party developers can actually now have space within inside of an account that's approved by the user. And this is where we think, these mini apps can also come in. We're going to have a complete system, a complete push and pull system. And you can imagine these third-party mini apps being like Lego bricks, these foundational building blocks, if you will, and having your personal AI agent use the output of one mini app as the input to another. So you as a user can decide, I want to do something, and have the AI based off of the mini apps that are in the marketplace stitch together, a little kind of template, if you will, that chains these mini apps together. Because at the beginning, you may not want the AI to do all of your transactions for you. You may want just for the AI to be able to string different mini apps together that have been built by third-party devs that have already been vetted, so that you as a user don't have to vet all the action that the AI is doing. You just have to vet the connection between the mini apps. And I think this will help provide not only a way for third-party developers to generate revenue by selling their mini app, but it will allow for this exponential increase in mini app usage, because the AI is going to recommend how these different mini apps can be chained together. In that way, third-party developers don't have to have a full-blown system. What you want, I think, is a lot of small mini apps and let the AI string them. And that allows for a lot more flexibility. And so I am hoping, as we position AI as the connector of these mini apps, it will be appealing to third-party developers, because they're not going to have to figure out a complete flow, all the different edge cases for an end user. They can build primitives, the foundational building block, and be able to let the AI iterate on them. And what we hope is that we can look at these metrics in aggregate and seeing what the AI is stitching together to help better predict what other building blocks be created, or what are the holes that are there. So instead of a few teams building these monolith apps that have all these crazy features, we have millions of third-party developers building these like tiny building blocks and letting the AI leverage. So I think it is incentively aligned so that we get the most amount of third-party developers on the Collab Land platform, and it gives a lot more flexibility, and exponential use cases can emerge from them. So that is why, again, AI is not the product, it is a feature to be leveraged. So we want to make sure that, at least for the foreseeable future, that we have and encourage third-party developers to build on the Collab Land marketplace, whether it's the admin portal, the command center, or the member portal that we're going to come out with. Because we need that humanness, that human curation, especially if we want to offer these services to mainstream audiences. They need to know that, or trust that work, and they don't have the ability to understand whether or not AI is hallucinating or going off the rails. So there needs to be this whole aspect of human curation. And I believe the human curation happens at the beginning. When it comes to the beginning of these mini apps, they need to be developed by third-party developers. Third-party developers use AI to help build their apps, like I did actually. Just a side note, I've not been a developer for a few years, and I had to be in charge of feature because our team is so heads down that I had to do a little bit of front-end development. I was really curious in terms of how advanced AI has gotten, came to helping developers develop, and I needed to be able to, have at least a general understanding. And there's no better way of learning than by doing. And so I created a front end app that connects to a blockchain directly, and I used AI. And typically, because I'm a bit rusty when it comes to development, I was putting about 2 full days, so 16 hours of development to be able to get a simple front end going. And I was able to do it being completely rusty, able to get it all up and running with some added improvements within 2 hours. So I guess it would be I 8x myself using AI. So just imagine a developer who is developing full time being able to get productivity gains from AI. So third-party developers definitely going to get advances in AI, but these mini apps are going to be curated and submitted by developers. It's not going to be fully automated, but the AI will be there as the connector, the curator, if you will, in a way. And it's just an algorithm that helps stitch mini apps together. So we also want to use AI to help redefine what it means to be a developer. So a bridge has invested heavily in no-code tooling a few years ago, and we're looking to see how we can bring that back out so that we can have tons of these little like foundational building blocks. And how are we going to do that if there's only a limited set of developers that exist out there in the world? Well, we want to redefine what it means to be a developer. So we're also looking to, it's not our number one priority, but we have no code tools and looking to see how we can incorporate AI into those no code tools to redefine what it means to be a developer. So mini apps are going to be super important. And again, AI is not the product, but it's a stitch different mini apps together. I'm looking at a question. Most people these days just have phones and not PCs or laptops, at least where I live. Plus, sounds like coding programming talk to most people. You can just copy and paste code now, I think, for the most part. Most people don't know that. Exactly right, Frosty. I think that, the days of desktop coding are now going to fall to the wayside. It will always exist, but like being able to code on your phone or to be able to produce code by combination of speaking and copying, pasting, or pointing and clicking or tapping will actually happen. They said over like a decade ago, where from a business perspective, CEOs were saying they only have a phone, they don't have a laptop anymore, and that sounded outrageous. I think it's gonna not be that extreme when it comes to developers, but I think that whether it is these Chromebooks or iPads kids are growing up with, or even smaller devices like mobile phones, I use a service called Replit. It's a coding platform, and I'm able to do simple things. I created a Collab GPT on Replit, if you look under James Young, and I did that on my phone. So yeah, I agree with you, Frost, that if we want as many third-party developers to be out there building on top of Collab Land, we need to redefine what it means to become a developer, and we need to emphasize and prioritize devices that most people have. And those, I think, are arguably people have, in terms of the globe and the world, more phones than desktops. All right. Okay. Doing a time check. I have 8 minutes left. I'm going to try to get through the rest of these slides. I hope this has been informative. And so the kind of main topic that pulls all of this together, the thread that I've been weaving here, and I hope I've been doing it accurately, leads up to this slide, which is intent and AI, where it's about stitching all these mini apps together. But before you can stitch these mini apps together, you got to know what to stitch. And so we talked about stitching push and pull based transactions. And, how do we get to pull based transactions if we didn't have them before? Well, we have this ability to now have a bundler and a paymaster service. So it's one of these things where we at Collab Land have been looking to figure out how to best position AI. And when you go, okay, well, AI is great, we're just going to automate all the transactions. you go, wait a second, there needs to be a better way of not just giving AI full access to your keys. Because what if the AI goes rogue or whatever, right? We have to take a step back and we have to give AI limited access where I, as a user, can like tell the AI, okay, you don't have access any longer, right? And so this is where we started uncovering other things or other problems that we need to solve. And in technology, that's what happens a lot of the time. You have a solution, or you think you know what the solution is, but then it uncovers another problem. So there's another stone to unturn. And once you unturn that stone, there are other stones to unturn. So sitting with a problem and not just going and trying to solve it sometimes is useful so that you can get to the root of the problem. And when it comes to AI, and this is why I say AI is not the product, because at first I was like, okay, it's all going to be about AI. AI is going to create this great world where I just say, hey, I turned my paperclip into my purchase of a paperclip into buying a house, right? Though there's that famous kind of journey where someone was able to trade up a paperclip to then eventually trade that up to purchase a house. Well, how do you start down that road? How do you get? Well, as I explained, and I hope we have to have other technologies in place. So 6900 is one of them for pull-based transactions that are needed in order to create a full circle or complete picture of how payments work. But in order to have a pull-based system, we need proper account abstraction where you could rotate keys. And you can have a bundler and a token payment. Because ultimately, what we want to do is we want to onboard at Collab Land the next billion users. How do we onboard the next billion users? We have third-party developers develop apps. How do we get apps developed? Well, we have to help redefine what it means to be a developer, because the bar is too onerous for a lot. If we want to get to a billion users as quickly as possible, we have to make it easy for developers to be able to create these fundamental widgets, building blocks. And we need AI to kind of fill in the gap, if you will, for user onboarding and for stitching all of these mini apps together. And part of that will be having Collab token be used to pay for gas. This is part of the reason why we have this distribution, so that we can actually help onboard users and manifest this idea of being able to have those that have been traditionally locked out of economic systems to be able to form together. And this is why community is so important to us. And the basis of mainstream adoption is not going to happen one individual at a time. It's going to happen by empowering communities, by empowering developers and the marketplace, whether it's on the admin side or on the user side with our member portal. So that's our vision, that's our goal. And these are the technical or implementation details in how we're going to get there. We don't want to be too prescriptive because it's very hard to predict the future, but we want to lay down the building block so that we can build this together, collaboratively. All right, so 3 minutes left. Last slide, I think, is Q&A, and I know that there was a question up before. I don't know if that question still wants to be asked or how we want to do that. If I don't see Cash Gale here anymore, so maybe we move on to any other questions that we have in the last 2 minutes as we wrap up. All right. I hope this is landing. It's difficult. I'm so excited by this that I am blinded through my excitement. Uh, and just we're on the cusp. I can literally taste happening. Um, I don't know if that's an appropriate analogy, but it's so close. Um, so I get super excited. So sometimes that blinds me in terms of being able to express myself correctly. Frosty requested to speak. Happy to. How do we get Frosty to ask their question? Is that possible,
Uh,
GB?
Absolutely. We just sent him an invite to speak, so he just needs to accept it and he'll be able to come up on this stage.
Okay, great. And I also want to be mindful of time. We're coming up on the hour here. So, Frosty, if you can come up, great. And if not, please feel free to DM me or ask it on the stage, but happy for you to come up.
Let's give it a minute.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes,
Yay.
Frosty.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
No problem.
So,
Welcome.
hello. No, that's very good. What you said, I understood it. Because I'm kind of dealing with the same back problem. My immediate family, my brothers and sisters, my mom and dad, my daughter even, they're not like technologically impaired, but like if they would have just listened to everything you said, they'd be like thinking you're speaking a different language.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to get them into crypto for a couple years now. And so I'm thinking if I can just somehow make it really easy for them to get into it, and not just crypto, but the Web3, the whatever else there is, blockchain, Web3. I can't explain it as good as you because I've only been in it a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a good small work case or whatever case study to start
Mm-hmm.
small, like
Mm-hmm.
my family, and see how you can do that, or how I could get them to all get into crypto easily and make it as easy for them to so they could do it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I
like
think this is. Mhm. Sorry, go ahead.
how would you go about making that easy? Because when I start talking about it, I can tell it's like their brains shut off and they just push it away.
Right.
Like I can't even listen to it because I don't know that. You're talking programming and stuff, and it's like I'm not a programmer. I know a little, but I want to be. I'm going to be. Anyways, so what do you think? Like, what do you say
Yeah,
to dumb it down? Kind of a bad way to say it, but
no, I think what you're saying is the the main barrier to adoption right now for crypto in general. And I think one, it starts with you have to solve a problem that they have. Like if it's not helping them solve a problem and making something easy for them, there's not going to be a lot of interest to do it. And I think one of the first problems that we solved is sending crypto without having to leave Discord, like a slash tip command or something like that. And we make it really easy for them to be able to secure a wallet or an account and be able to send transactions in Discord. I think that's the first thing. And when they realize, whoa, they can like get this value exchange and they could do something with it, it like pays for something. I think that's really when like the aha moment will happen. And so instead of these promises of like the future and privacy and all of these things are a bit abstract, they need to feel it. They need to experience it. It needs to have impact for them. It needs to land for them. And only then will it like be meaningful. It will resonate. And that's one of our first things that we'll probably do. And it looks like once we, move towards our next steps with 4337, CC900, what we want to do is just deploy these accounts to every Collab Land managed Discord server so that people can like be able to acquire an account, be able to manage it themselves. It needs to be way easier than logging into online banking. And it needs to be fun. It needs to be intuitive. And I think we start there.
So like I wanted to use APIs and all the stuff you're talking about. I can't even say it that. But I only had a phone. I didn't think it was possible on a phone, which I'm learning it kind of is, but it's easier with a laptop or a computer. Because you need the terminal or whatever, or the what do you call that? Command prompt? I don't know the actual terminology.
Yeah, the terminal. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the command line interface. Some people call it a CLI.
And that's where you can put in the you can basically just copy and paste stuff for the most part now, and that's how I think you should be doing it. Right?
Yeah, I would imagine that even beyond just copy and pasting, we at Bridge prior to Collab Land, it was just connecting boxes together. So a box represents a piece of code, and then you connect that one box, which is the output, as input to another box, and you're just like chaining these commands. There's a couple of other companies that are doing it, like Zapier, Zapier, does it for APIs, where it's like a no-code tool. Well,
we don't want people to not be coding at all. Like they should get the basics, but to onboard them, show them how easy it is at first. Like it's really easy, and then explain the code, like a little bit of coding.
That's right.
A little later.
Yeah, it's like training wheels, right? You don't go. Most people you don't just ride a bike. You start on training wheels. You learn how to steer, right? And then maybe you put the training wheels up a little bit so that it's like they're not always touching the ground, so that you can kind of like learn how to balance a little bit before you fully take the training wheels off. So we need that progression when it comes to exactly what you're saying, on the development side and on the user side. So, on the user side, all you need to know is how to get onto Discord, right? That's kind of the training wheel. And then later on, you can start doing things on your own if you choose to do so, right? Maybe training wheels is all you need, and that's where you stay. But for those that are more adventurous, you can now learn about EOAs and rotate your keys. And, as you are incentivized because your funds or your assets are growing and they mean more to you, you'll be more invested in learning all of them. Same with development. You start from just dragging boxes around, not even coding, and then getting a feel for it, and then learning to cut and paste, and then moving on to maybe AI assisted programming. But I do think if you're going to be serious about coding, depending on how serious you want to be, learning the fundamentals will always be essential.
Right, but most people aren't going to want to do that, I don't think.
They may just want to get something done, right? They're like, I just want to know enough because I want to do X, Y, or Z, right? And that's kind of where you want to have that empathy. You want to meet the user, the developer, where they're at, and say, okay, well, how can I best or help you, right? Those are the best features, and that's what we're hoping to provide in our tooling ways where it's not that you have to do something a certain way, but that the system could be flexible to help you where you're at. And I think that might be an opportunity where AI can a bit and automate kind of just the beginning of getting you off the ground. And you can ask an AI, that. And that's what people use AI for. It's like mentoring or asking questions and getting answers, because AI, never gets tired and never gets offended. So,
Well, who's mostly using AI? Is it people who already are literate in code and stuff, or
yeah,
not?
it's interesting that you say. I was reading somewhere where an interviewer was interviewing a novice programmer, and this novice programmer was just accepting all the AI answers, and it led to the wrong answer,
Yeah,
right? And so I think that there is a balance, and we're figuring that out, how to make sure that the AI is as helpful as possible. Because if you use anything, not just AI, as a crutch, then it doesn't help you. So it really kind of is an interesting topic of research, where it's like, do you learn the fundamentals first and then you use AI, right? So it's kind of like, do you learn how to add and subtract and know the fundamentals before you use a calculator? Which I would, you can think of a calculator as like the most primitive form of AI, right?
yeah.
Or, do you use a calculator as you're learning how to, add, subtract, multiply, divide, and those things. So it's hard to know exactly how this will turn out. But people are actively working on it right now. But it's a great question. I don't know what comes first, fundamentals or AI, or so it really depends on your use case.
Okay.
But great question, and thank you, Frosty. I really appreciate the interaction. This is great. With that, I know that we're about 11 minutes over. So,
Sorry.
oh no, this is great. And thank you everyone in the audience for hanging out and staying on board and staying with us here. I just want to make sure that I respect everyone else's time here. And I guess we'll wrap up. Unless there's anything else you want to add.
I also wanted to add something real quick. And that's that I think in the near future, onboarding will be easier because on the Collab Land side, we're going to have tipping. And there's a lot of fun things to do with tipping. And I think that it helps a lot when it comes to teaching the basics on how tipping works and withdrawing funds and depositing. And there's a lot of fun things that we're going to be doing. I think it's way more both fun and easier to learn when there's fun things going on, such as, I don't know, trivias or activities that we can use to teach people. So that's coming soon, and I'm very excited about that. And I think it's an easy way to onboard people. So excited about that.
Yes, thank you, Chibi. I am so excited about. We'll create a lot of little tipping games. So
Yep, having said that, thank you, James, so much. I'm not sure if you saw kudos from, I think it was Binod. It says, thank you for teaching us. And I feel the same way. These are very informative sessions. And I'm not so knowledgeable when it comes to AI, but these I find very interesting. And I get to learn a lot of things from you. So I very much appreciate that. And also thanks everyone in the audience for attending. I always love to see you guys in here.
thank you, Chibi, for guiding these conversations, and I'm so happy that it's useful to others, because we're all going to learn from each other, and that's what Collab Land is about: learning, supporting each other, because it's impossible to do this alone. So why not do it together, and why not have fun doing it while we're doing it together? That's what I hope we do with tipping, especially here, as we get this rolled out. So thank you, Chibi. And thank you, Frosty, for your questions. These are great questions. And thanks you for everyone in the audience for listening. And please provide feedback. I want to make this as useful and as informative as for everyone. So I look forward to any suggestions or any next types of talk for these AI meetup.
Thank you guys for letting me talk.
Yeah, anytime. Glad you're here.
For sure. Thank you, everyone, again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.